Hot take. Men are more oppressed than women.
Yes.
You could make a good argument for it.
There are ways in which
War,
men are
pretty
oppressed,
big one.
and I think those are also due to the patriarchy. Like in a society, you said this is a society built by men. So wouldn't you think a society built by men, would the consequences of that would be kind of men's fault? And I'm not saying that there aren't ways that
it's
men
not
are
clear to me
oppressed.
if it's their fault because they are men. Like,
It's on no individual.
Actually, a stronger argument to be made would be people in positions of power, regardless of their gender. It's not because they're men.
Look at who's in power. Look at who's been in power for the last 1,000,000 years.
Okay, and?
There's a hyperbole. It's men.
Okay.
Because, I mean, we were talking about earlier with, like, the essay stuff in schools and, like, women essaying. That's, for instance, a position of power that women usually aren't in over someone else. In that position of power, they used it. So it's nothing about men's inherent, like, drive to hurt people or themselves. It's about when you're put in that position of power, some people use it poorly, and some people don't even know that they are.
That's cool, but I think men are more oppressed than women. What do you think about that?
Agree to disagree?
Agree to disagree.
I can tell you more, but like I gave my point, and you can respond to that, or you
Sure.
can repeat your original statement.
Okay, so I guess I can back this up a little bit. So I think all feminist arguments just about oppression are dead on arrival because, and this, all of women's collective grievances fall flat in the face of just one. There's many male grievances, but there's one in particular that I think absolutely dwarfs any and all of women's collective grievances, and that is forced military conscription. You can add up all of women's grievances together, and in my view, they do not. I know it's hard to make comparisons and it's hard to compare and contrast. Forced military conscription is worse than all of women's collective grievances. You can whine about it all you want, but I would say the suffering that men have exclusively experienced during warfare throughout all of human history is orders of magnitude greater than, as I've said, all of women's collective grievances, supposed and real.
When was the last draft?
When is the last? Well, the last draft was in the Vietnam War. And
then before that, it was World War II, right?
When did women get?
Oh no,
when did women get the right to vote?
White women or which?
All
women.
All women.
Super late. I forget the exact year, but it was white women like 50 years before everyone else, or before the last.
Is that
group.
true?
Yeah.
I'd like a fact check on.
Do you want me to do it?
On that. In any case, women's suffrage 1920, but women frequently.
Same for men.
Right, but you're saying when was the last? Here, let's talk about it. The Ukraine war. We can talk about the Ukraine war. So there's currently 2 major ongoing military conflicts in the world. We might be on the verge of World War III.
Yep.
So, and in the event that happens, women are not subject to military conscription. You want to talk about inequality. Y'all aren't subject to forced military conscription. You don't have to register for the selective service. The last time there was a draft was in Vietnam, and I know you want to use that as when was the last time there was a draft. It's actually very dismissive because here's a very big point.
Fear?
Hold on. What? Hold on. I want to go into the fear thing, but there are men that would be alive today had they not been drafted. And there are men that are alive today that were drafted. Vietnam, Korea, World War II. I mean, there's very few World War II vets left, but so there are men who would have been alive today, right now. They could have been in this room that aren't alive because they were drafted in Vietnam. And then there's men that did get drafted in Vietnam and they have like major PTSD, serious issues, casualties of war, they've lost limbs, serious issues. So yes, the ramifications of forced military conscription are the negative consequences of that are alive today in men.
I'm gonna say something, and you're probably gonna be like, "That's crazy."
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Unlikely.
So
Compared
there's
to the
ways
other
to
girl?
get out of the draft, right? I would much rather cut a toe off than than be a woman, than to have to deal with what women deal with. You can skip the draft if you have any shit wrong with you. I would cut a fucking hand off. I'd cut a
you
foot
wouldn't.
off.
Okay. I've never heard that argument when it comes to the draft.
Like, you
but-
could just
Pro
not do it.
draft dodger.
Wait, so
Really
what?
is.
What were you? But what were
I'm
you saying about the
anti-draft.
fear? What were you saying about the
Well,
fear?
like,
what did you mean when you said fear?
Well, it seems like you think that you're more oppressed than me. You know, would you say that's true? It's okay if it is. You know,
Am
and
I
so if
more
it's just
oppressed
that
than
one
you?
thing, when it's just that one thing, it's like it's kind of unlikely that it will. And if it does happen, that fucking sucks, and you will have it harder than me.
I actually do. I mean, I'm not of an age that I mean, they could always expand the draft in the scenario of some catastrophic world war. You know, they could extend the age, but I did have to register for the selective service. Men who don't face consequences. You can lose certain benefits as a man that doesn't apply to women. So I mean.
Also, that's the consequence of being physically stronger, you know? Like, you're able to protect yourself in ways that I can't protect myself. And as a consequence of that,
Well,
that's
yeah, but
fine.
if
And
you're
it's not your fault.
you're a feminist, you should be in favor of gender equality. So women should be subject to military conscription.
No one
The
should be
consequence
subject
of
to
being
military.
able to birth a baby would make this. So you could make that argument.
Yeah.
But hold on.
Wait, what's your point?
No, but
Take his point and just go with it.
You can't blame men for being bigger and saying that's why you got to go to war,
Well,
even though
I
that's
mean,
what we've
but
kind of
also
done.
I'm
It's
not
not
mad
like
at you
men are-
about childbirth.
I mean,
I'm
a
not
lot of
mad at you
women
at all.
are saying like, "Hey, what are you doing?"
Right, but-
also, when you're going to war, you're not like fist fighting either.
Yeah.
right,
So
and
it's
women
like-
women could be drafted into like support roles, even if you're
That's
not.
what happens when you take away abortion rights. You're drafted into a support role. If you have like a kid that you didn't want, that you were forced to have, you're drafted into a support role.
No, but the state. Hold on. The state is not forcing you to have sex, and if you want to get an abortion,
But some people get forced to have sex.
okay, but you do realize most. If I concede that
not a
some
perfect
abortions are the result of rape, will you concede that most 99% of abortions are because the woman can't financially support the kid, or it's like
Yeah.
the sex was consensual that led to her getting an abortion?
Yeah.
Okay, so like you're making the argument of from like the what's it called?
An abortion is also like a physical procedure. So I'm doing the same thing. If I cut my toe off, that's a physical procedure to get out of this draft. It's not a perfect comparison, and it's funny to say these things because they're kind of ridiculous. But I think there is a little bit of validity there
Validity to what?
to like comparing these two things.
What two things?
The draft to anything else I've compared it to.
Well, it's not even just the draft. It's actually warfare in and of itself
Yeah.
is like something that throughout all of human history, I know that women can now enter the military,
Well, now it's
but it's like something that's pretty much exclusively been within the realms of men. And military, there's no glory in like I mean, I guess for some people they get some sort of glory from it, but like warfare is brutal in ways that you cannot imagine.
Insane.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
also, like, can I just ask you a question? What were the dates of World War I? Do you know?
I know like a range,
Sure, tell me the range.
like
You don't have to tell, like, just year. Just the year. I'm not asking for, like, date or month.
early 40s.
No, World War I. World War I. Yeah.
1910, 1912, somewhere around there.
To what?
I don't know how long it lasted. I think 10.
Okay.
I don't know.
1914 to 1918 was World War I. What about World War II?
Like 1940 something.
To when?
That one lasted a good like 6 years. I think.
Do you want to give a range or?
Like between like it stopped at it was
Okay,
capped at
it-
50.
So it was 1939 to 1945.
Yeah, that's 6
But I feel, okay, it's like if you don't even know when the two most catastrophic events in human history occurred, I almost feel like you don't have the requisite knowledge to assert anything about the ways in which women are oppressed as compared to men.
I don't really want you to tell me that I don't know about these wars, though, just off one detail.
But if you don't
like,
even
I know about
the
the Axis
ranges-
powers and the Allied power, like I know about that.
No,
shit.
actually, I'm just for fun. I'm just curious. 3 Axis powers, 3 Allied powers.
I get the names mixed up, but I know it was
Into the mic. 3 Axis powers.
I know who was together. I don't know.
3
which one is
Axis
which.
powers. 3 Axis powers.
Well, if I say the wrong team, you're gonna
Just
you're
go
gonna be
ahead.
Like, see, when I know a bunch of information about it, I'm not studied up on this like you are because you're a professional debate guy, So I don't think that's a fair comparison. That because you have like statistics and you like I took I learned about these things and I knew them, I can tell you shit that I know, but like I don't think that's fair.
That's fine. I mean, I'm sure we could go back and forth for a very long time. I don't think it's worth really lingering.
It's also 12:28
Yeah, I know.
a.m. and you're trying to get me to name Axis powers. Like,
yeah,
fuck
that's
you.
That's fucking based.
You're a fuckhead for that.
Okay.
I think there's advantages to being women and disadvantages, and there's advantages
I
to
agree.
men and disadvantages to being men.
I
And
agree.
what a lot of people, not you suggestively, but what they like to do is go, well, this is why the world is fucked and it's a man's system because look at all these things I have to deal with. And you go, yeah, but you also have some pretty good ones, like
Yeah.
not going to war or like. Anytime, I'd love to see a statistic on how many years men serve for the same crimes that women do. I'd love for someone to do because
they've done
It's
that.
I
very
guarantee
low.
women crush it in the courts.
Yeah.
Crush it in the courts for the same crimes. And I don't go, well, look, the system's set against men. Like, I could make some good arguments for that.
You want to hear something crazy, somewhat crazy related to this? So, for example, we often hear that, well, black men are more likely to be victims of police brutality or police misconduct than white men are. And that's evidence of racism in the police force, right? However, that if you compare that to the rates of police misconduct and police brutality directed towards men compared to women, if you're comparing that to the police misconduct, the comparison between white men to black men, the rate between men and women is like, I think it's 8x or 10x greater. So is that therefore
Right.
evidence of sexism,
Right.
systemic sexism within the
just-
police?
It's whenever a bad thing happens to a guy, it's like, that's life. That's just how the world goes. And I'm not putting this on you guys, but like when something bad happens to a woman, it's like,
Sexism,
this
yeah.
is a fundamental systematic outrage. And you're like, no, it's just,
Yeah.
life's not
Bad shit
perfect.
happens.
Shit happens to both of us. And good things happen to both of us. And I don't cry about the bad ones.
It's not. I don't think you can compare the difference between men and women because that's in our brain. That's hormonal. Like if I can't really say anything else besides at the very least the hormonal difference is so drastically different that affects a lot of the reason men and women are different.
Sure.
Different races have the same brains. So it's not really comparable.
Right.
Like a different race's oppression versus oppression of a man versus a woman.
Word?
Word.
Oh, here, one more thing. Upon birth, who do you think is more like oppressed or disadvantaged, men or women?
Like being born.
Yeah, like upon
Just
birth.
like when you're a baby.
Yeah.
Like inherently, what do you mean? Like how
Yeah,
you're
like
treated
for
as
the first
that baby?
from birth to the first 6 months, who's
Not
more
counting China.
who's more oppressed?
Yeah. See,
Well, they got rid of that, I think.
but it
They
still
don't.
affects it culturally because
Okay.
there's cultural impacts of things that.
Let's
used
just
to be
talk about
lost.
the United States.
Um,
Who's got it worse?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
What do you think?
Well, I think men, or boys, I should say, even when they are that young, even when they haven't, there's no way, we're not counting wage gaps and, college admissions, any of this.
What are you counting?
6 months.
Circumcision.
Yeah, that's true.
So immediately upon birth, nearly every boy in the United States has their genitals mutilated That
Yeah.
sounds like a pretty
That's bad.
pretty poor
That
outcome
happens
without their
to-
consent, by the way.
To
So
women in some areas of the world. That's
in some
again,
areas of the
that is
world,
true.
but I would argue that male circumcision
It's
is
more
far
common,
more
yeah.
prevalent than female genital mutilation.
That's true. I didn't think about
So
that.
I mean, immediately upon birth, as
Upon
soon
birth,
as
yes.
as soon as boys come into the world, without their consent, they have their genitals mutilated. So I mean,
At least you don't have like smegma though.
see, I mean, that's crazy.
And
That's
who
a
has to
real
do with
crazy.
that?
So do you think it's do you think that that's a good reason to
No, I'm joking. I made a joke.
mutilate children's genitals
No,
because
I was making a joke.
because of your preference for men who are not or who are cut?
I was making a joke.
It's actually funny. Like if you think about it, the majority of
I've had a preference.
this is almost something that's like single moms or like having their. Okay, well, I don't want to get into it, but.
You're killing me. I'm gonna fall asleep when I get home.
No, but it's just like if you start looking at if you pull back the curtain, like there's a lot of pretty negative outcomes that impact boys and men. So
Well, it's a
Um,
leverage of power. A lot of people want to use these things as leverage of power. They don't want to look into the details of it.